What's going on, guys? I want to clear up some of the misconceptions about medical evidence, how to get it, positive versus negative medical evidence. It kind of, tell you more about it, basically. So the VA is going to downplay you. Doesn't happen all of the time, 100% of the time. No, it does not. It just happens most of the time. So this is what we're defending against. If you have negative medical evidence in your file, your claim's going to get denied because they're not breaking off the diagnosis. It'll even be on a problem list, but it won't actually be a diagnosis. I have no idea how they do that, but they do it. Or they'll make a lot of mentions about stuff. I had PTSD mentions in my records from 2008. I didn't get the diagnosis till 2019. I missed out on so much money because I didn't know how to fight for myself. I didn't know what to do in 1991. And nothing changed, right? I always had PTSD, but I didn't get the diagnosis and the award of it until 2019. So there was no back pay. I'm definitely going to be looking into it and challenging old effective dates, but I'm not going to be doing that until my rating is actually protected. So I have a strategy. It's a long game. And yeah, guess what? I will be alive in 17 more years. I am going to will myself alive. I am dedicating myself to fighting the VA and getting the compensation I deserve. My life was destroyed by the military. Let's go to Netflix. Let's start there. I know, probably not the greatest place, but if you watch Netflix, look at the way the medical evidence is presented, what's his name? Bundy, right? They got him using bite mark technology, which is not even a thing. That's just what they did. And whenever that was, in 1980 or something like that, bite mark evidence, it's bullshit evidence. But I think it was in Tallahassee or somewhere in North Florida or something. The prosecutor, the DA, that's what they came up with, a biting expert, right? They went out and paid a bite expert to, basically go put him away. I don't remember what the defense was because he chose to defend his own self because he's a moron. But we can do that that's not recommended in a criminal murder trial. But you can't do that with the VA. So that's an example of, just you could just go pay doctors to say shit. That's an example. This doctor went on the stand, a bite mark expert, and tried to invent a technology or scientific evidence that didn't even exist. Fast forwarding a little bit, more Netflix, Dahmer. He just admitted he was just waiting to get caught from what I took from that one. But they hired a psychologist to, say he was crazy and it was all about an insanity defense. So there's the defense side of the insanity defense, right? The defense team hired people, and then the prosecutor hired people. And they literally say the opposite stuff. Oh, he's insane. Well, no, not really. He may like eating people, but that's not technically insane because he had it wrapped up and it looked like meat from the butcher. And it's they go back and forth yeah, but it was still somebody's heart. Guy's fucking crazy. Another example, those are just a couple Netflix things. I like watching the serial killer things. I think it's fascinating. Then, the OJ trial, right? So then we had DNA evidence. I think that was one of the big first trials of DNA evidence. This is a new technology, which is obviously here to stay now, but not in 1992 or 3 or whenever it was. And there's a guy on the other team, the Dream Team, Barry Scheck. His job was to say DNA evidence is so new, and he just poked holes in it. That's basically how OJ got off. That's what I got from that trial. Remember watching that on one of the 5 network stations back in 93? That's right when I got out. You can hire, and that's what happens in criminal cases across the country, personal injury, car accident cases. My mom got into a car accident, and my stepdad's sister was driving, and she was drinking. Or I don't know if she was drinking at the time, but she was a well-known alcoholic. So something happened to the car. It was against Mercedes. And I don't know all the details of it or whatever. But basically, like, the gas got stuck. They're both in their 70s or something like that. And dad's sister died. Mom suffered tons of injuries, but survived. And, they ended up with a case or a suit or whatever against Mercedes for like a defective car. And, Mercedes rushes out with all sorts of medical experts. The last thing they want is whatever year, make, and model of that car to have a known problem, because it has known problems, right? I don't know how many people were in this exact situation where they hit the gas or the gas got stuck and people got killed, but it happened. That's the way these car manufacturers are. So the game there was got a lawyer, and the goal is to settle because you are in, I think my mom was probably it was like 10 years ago or something. So I don't know, she was 73 at the time. The lawyer was like, we need to settle because Mercedes will literally drag this out until you're dead. So do you want to get something now or never? Because that's the way they play their games, right? So again, Mercedes has, this kind of medical expert and this kind of testimony and I guess that was more automotive stuff. But there was some questions about the history of my dad's sister's. So they had a doctor come in and talk about how she's had a lot of alcohol problems, had some DUIs and that kind of stuff. So these doctors, you could buy them basically, right? It happens every day. It's not like it's illegal or a foreign concept. It literally happens every day. I wanted to do some kind of bigger pictures. Maybe you would have caught one of these cases. I'm sure you heard about Bundy and Dahmer, and maybe you caught those shows and you saw some of that stuff. So how does that apply to veterans? Exactly the same way. The VA has VHA doctors, your treating physicians, Veteran Health Administration, and they downplay symptoms. It's just like I read my stuff, like I see the downplaying. I've been seeing it going on for years. And it's not contained to just me. It's rampant all over the place. Doesn't matter what VA regional office you're in. I don't know what the deal is with it, but that's what happens. So when you are filing a claim and you're going up against downplaying, lowball, shitty, negative evidence that's not going to be used in your favor, you're going to lose your claim. So the best way to fight that is to have something to either completely offset the bad evidence or be better than the bad evidence, an actual treating physician. In most cases, you can't do this with a VA doctor. You can go from, the Salt Lake City one to the Idaho one, and maybe have a better doctor, and maybe they don't lie as much. Maybe they just got hired and they actually care or something. Who knows? So that does happen. And, it happens a fair amount of time. I'd say 20% of the time. But for the other 80% of us, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work in our favor. So we have to get a private doctor. All right. So how do you approach a private doctor? You just tell them what's going on. Hey, I'm a veteran. Don't thank me for my service. I don't want you to pull out a 20-gun salute. I'm not trying to be a hero here. I'm a veteran. You're a board-certified psychologist or psychiatrist. This is what went down when I was in combat, and I have issues, serious issues. And you explain the issues. He is not, by default, going to not diagnose you. It's the opposite. He will diagnose you. He will write down what your symptoms are based on what you're telling him. He is going to actually give you the benefit of the doubt, where the VA's law is supposed to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's just a whole different ballgame. So he's going to write down your diagnosis and your symptoms, and then you're going to need a nexus too, right? So you might as well ask for all that stuff up front. Hey, will you help me with the nexus? Will you help me with the diagnosis? Will you help me with the symptoms? Well, Craig, I don't know you yet. It's fine. You will. But I need to know if you could do those three things first before I tell my story to you and go through a shit ton of pain again to the 12th doctor in my life. They actually will understand that. And it's like, yeah, I can handle the diagnosis. Or if you're dealing with a board certified psychiatrist, they'll give you meds. So they're less worried about the talking part, but either of them can provide the medical evidence. So that's the approach. Can you help me out? Can you write a nexus for me? Do you know how to write a nexus? Do you know how to fill out a DBQ? And you're a doctor, so I'm going to assume that you can do a diagnosis, but just in case, are you qualified to give me a diagnosis? It's that straight up. And then if it's like, yeah, I could do some of it and other stuff, or I'm not comfortable with that, thanks. I appreciate your honesty. Here's your $45 for the copay. We don't even need to have a visit, right? Or whatever, however much that conversation costs you. We don't need to go further because you can't help me. Then you just hop in your car and make an appointment and go see the next head shrinker. They're everywhere in every city across this country. You will find one within 5 of these kind of things. Hopefully you don't have to shop around that much. Now, doctor shopping is kind of like a thing. It's just kind of popping into my mind. So this isn't your on Norco like I was for 8 years or whatever. And, I mean, there's an argument to be made there about how much was addiction and how much was masking pain. But I'm off those little bastards and I still have the pain, but that opioid thing became a pain in the ass. That stuff tore me up. So when you hear doctor shopping, it's like that. Like my ex-wife was an ER nurse. So she said that was like a big problem. Like people would, have Norco, eat them too fast, or run out of a prescription and then go to the ER and they're just strung out and they want more. So when you hear doctor shopping, it's kind of more like that. It's more of like you're a drug addict trying to get a fix. That's not what you're doing, right? You're not trying to get Schedule II drugs. You're not trying to get any drugs. You're trying to get a diagnosis, symptoms, and a nexus. So I want to remove that doctor shopping stigma out of the way. When you're just trying to get your paperwork right, technically it's called doctor shopping, but it doesn't have all the, I'm trying to get a bunch of drugs hooked up to thing, if that makes sense. So that's literally what you're doing. You're doctor shopping. And you could do it in your own hometown. You could do it online. I work with a group of doctors. Call them up. Somehow or another, you need to get this positive medical evidence to fight the negative medical evidence. And you're going to have to go read it. And, it's definitely not the most fun read, getting your C-file and waiting 6 months. That's not fun. That whole system needs to be fixed. But right now we work with what we got, right? We'll fix what we can. Right now we're just trying to fix you up with the actual rating that you deserve. So go in, get your diagnosis, get your symptoms, get your nexus, find a doctor that will actually do it for you. And, you're going to have to look at what he writes. You actually have to double check your doctor too. Make sure that it meets the burden of proof, because that's basically what you're trying to do here. You looked at your VA records and you could clearly see they're downplaying your symptoms. Like if you were to go through all your PTSD symptoms, that would actually indicate that you have a diagnosis if you have PTSD. So they probably won't call it that. They'll probably call it like unspecified anxiety disorder or unspecified depressive disorder. That's what they called it on me for a while until it changed into major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and then PTSD. So you're going to have to wade through this stuff and look at it. And it's like, look at the rating criteria. How much social and occupational impairment do you have? When you're going through there, it's like, wow, veteran presented and he seemed a little sad. A little sad is not a chronic condition. Everybody gets a little bit sad, like a lot, right? So if that verbiage is in there, that's not helping you. This is a chronic condition. This guy has suicidal ideation problems. This guy cannot function in society. This guy can't hold a job. This guy can't hold a marriage. This guy doesn't even have kids that talk to him. Nobody likes this guy and he has no friends. That's the kind of stuff that you need in there, right? To show levels of social and occupational impairment. So if you don't have that in there, you go get another doctor. Literally, it's easy because you can fill out the DBQ. All right, Craig, we're on page 2. How's the friendship situation? And you just laugh in their face. Friends? I don't have friends. Check. How's your, what do they call it? Hypervigilance levels. They're fine when I have cameras on all over the place. I can hear everything. My dog is doing extra hearing for me. And I'm well armed. And if somebody comes in here, they're done. I'm going to smoke them. I don't have any problems right now. And it's like, yeah, but if all that was taken away, yeah, that would be like a good part of my life and I'd be pretty, bad. Check. Hypervigilant issues. So the DBQ is a good way to do it. A lot of doctors like doing an independent medical opinion instead, and that's fine. Just make sure they cover the points on the DBQ because you're going up against the DBQ from the C&P exam. You are going to pay this money. Like, this is not something the VA is going to do for you. This isn't, oh, wow, I wish I had the money. And it's going to probably cost you $1,500, like between $1,000 and $2,000. Don't pay $600. Don't pay a PA or a nurse practitioner or some underqualified person. Just go and pay a regular doctor. And I know some of them charge $5,000. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Just make sure it's a real doctor, and it's probably going to cost you $1,500. Where do I get the money? I'm not your personal finance coach. I can think of a million ways to go get money, especially if it's like I'm at $200 a month from the VA. And if I get this piece of paper for $1,500, I'm going to be at $33,3206. That's the best investment you're going to make in your life. I know how to get that easily. And it makes sense. And it's not like, oh, if you invest in this stock, you'll make a lot of money down the road. Like, you do this and you do it right, you will immediately get back pay and get paid going forward. And then you're going to have to defend your rating. So that's what I wanted to say about medical evidence, and wanted to use a couple of examples, and I'm going to keep doing examples. This one was more about mental health, but it applies to migraines. It applies to orthopedic conditions and all that kind of stuff too. But this VA claims are about money. Once you separate, VHA is about your health. You could be sad and bummed out and tell them all your war stories all you want. They don't care, but that's who you talk to. With the VBA, you tell them just enough. So you win money, you win benefits, you win protection for your family in the future and for yourself in the future. That's what they're designed to do. You got injured, you got a disability, they will compensate you because you can't work. You can't work at your full potential or at any potential. So I'll talk more about other conditions. I'm always going to mental health because it's a 70% rating. It doesn't make any sense to go file claims if the goal is to get paid and go file a claim where you end up with 0%. You went in and you put effort into something and got it service connected at 0%. It just doesn't make any sense because it doesn't pay. It doesn't even give you any additional benefits. So that's where I'm at on this one.
If you need to appeal your VA claim, check out Hill and Ponton at hillandponton.com. See if they could help you out. Also, if you're at Camp Lejeune between 53 and 87, you may be eligible for additional benefits. Links for both of those are in the description. Don't forget to sign up for my boot camp if you want to learn more about my process, which is the VA claims process. You're going to need medical evidence to win your VA claim. If you're missing a diagnosis, severity of your symptoms, or a nexus, and your doctor won't do it for you, send an email to Second Strata and see if they can help you with your missing medical evidence.